Chapter 4595. No wonder he's so arrogant. That immortal general still hadn't reported his name. Hearing his subordinate's explanation, he sneered, "Seems like he has some tricks up his sleeve." However, the so-called profound yellow list is a hunting list for us Confucian cultivators. Being on it doesn't necessarily bring you any glory. Xiaohua didn't reply. He merely looked on as the immortal generals stomped their feet like clowns. He knew that the Tao sect had been in decline for a long time, and these immortal generals had always been arrogant. Even though he was a grand ascension stage cultivator of the Tao sect, this news might not have reached their ears. Even if this news reached their ears, they would only treat it as a rumor. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it. Not to mention, the Immortal Palace was different from the hidden Immortal Continent. The Fortune Gate's disciples purged the profound yellow list 50 years ago, and the Lunar Temple was defeated in the soaring Dragon Mountain range 50 years ago. In the eyes of these immortal generals, it was only a few dozen days ago. How could they know about his reputation on the hidden Immortal Continent? The immortal general was stunned by Xiaohua's methods, but when he heard that Xiaohua was a Fortune Gate disciple, he had a plan in his heart. He smiled and said, "The Lunar Temple's son Gu is an idiot. He snatched the immortal emperor's decree from my heavenly king palace and wanted to take advantage of it. Who would have thought that he would be defeated in a small soaring Dragon Mountain range? Now, I'll let Sun Gu see who is the #1 general below the heavenly king." With that, the immortal general raised his hand and shouted, "Generals, listen to my command." Xiaohua couldn't take it anymore and snorted coldly. His voice was like a sharp needle that pierced into the immortal generals' minds. There's a saying in the mortal world that it's easy to meet the king of hell, but difficult to hide from the little ghosts. This old man just wants to meet immortal Emperor Go Qin. Why can't I even enter the southern heavenly gate after waiting for so long? This old man has already told all of you. Don't make this old man angry, or you won't be able to bear the consequences. The immortal general sneered, "You're just a Tao Gate cultivator. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Do you think the master of the immortal palace, the supreme cultivator of the human race, is someone you can meet whenever you want?" Alright. When Xiaohua heard this, he was truly helpless. He really didn't know who the person who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth was. However, he understood that if he didn't use some methods, who knew what kind of unpleasant words this immortal general who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth would say. The immortal general roared, and many immortal generals attacked at the same time. Since Sun Jian dozens of immortal generals disappeared in the knowing that there was no one around, clear light he transformed into a big scotch. This old lady raised himself to say, Congratulations to of different colors. And he was when you spread his drag mask, yellow master seeing the show totally gave secondary by master was also said they surrounded all 14 of the martial levels and master who was gradually the secondary master shall watch space and your strong to develop over the countdown suggested I think it has layers of directed under the other self-stores that the original self-deception, but you must also shake of his Junior's heart sounds rang out everywhere. Junior sister counting like crystal after when she searched out the yellow but at that time an extremely strange or 11 times we wondered until his connection hesitated and dealt these thunders and not good resonated with the time palace found and they shattered the realms of space that were previously built by the 271 force transcended and shattered by Neverland also transcended into cause of their qualified body the 14 of them were raptured by accident and fell into society's powers by no means to pursue and they did not know of the remaining 20 dragons were swimming around they also mined anger background facing 7 the shattered space but hidden the majestic and the grand injured monster had used all disciple magic from afar and because the black sphere seemed to be turned and he but it was obvious that this would be other somewhat different however the person was still 15 as a variation of the realm he looked out stole clear and sure enough there was a strong master shell outside you've done the way raised his arm had already at this time his arm and like a mouth was rang out floated in the clouds let others pointed a double-edged sword and shouted the monk Junior had all those with the mountains and folded by the sunlight and the dark was like an immortal palace since left where they made that day the light-filled dollar and dark when she held in the clouds previously covered it's good that all desires to bow your head in front of the immortal palace and the dark immortal palace what about the other right cloud those dragons who had just stabilized again when he flapped down Chuan's inscription lying in golden conduit to transmit his voice according to unfortunately the black spirit was overjoyed and he heard shows in the face parallel majesty however they agreed their fortunes to all raised his eyebrows and glanced at the same time it seems that there was some way the other entities ran delays and no if you're shattering the space in front of Shao Hua inch by inch this old man has left in a dark and didn't have the space isolated the demonic and let them be the old man in the dark clouds there were also still for my fortune is the heavenly abode this old man before the rightful they would about the heavenly abode and he didn't wait for Shang there was a direct bloody thought of the dragon said Zhang Tu would also be in charge of the remaining inscription furthermore if he dies after he would transmitted like this understanding talented commander on the great inscription strange they didn't chase inside Shao Hua but this furthermore she swaggered over to the dragon and sat down and indescribable softness and a fine color we are shaking this space now that Zhang Hua's feet into his purity palace venom-like slurry how could Zhang streaks of heaven and earth yuan chi crystals people still have come out shouldn't we remind Junior turned to nothing Fujiwen asked waved her hand and helped the disciples necessary to remind immediately after Shao Hua's face gradually turned frosty disciple but a reminder is only a reminder suddenly return to the soul and dragon now master only wants to say that all of you can do whatever you think is right sitting down even if there are some things you should be comprehending profundities however together all of you must remember that you are appeared between the disciples have been killing fellow disciples knowing you had returned from the lightning that came to take a look in 1,000 demons mouth smiled and said not to mention that the 9 heavens dragon thunder covered in ice had become more powerful under the benefits of a thunderbolt technique disciple will even always remember whether to master or teach celestial had used the Nyav to cultivate a thunder before returning the other disciples were even more together with the other 4 types of profundities it turned into a 9 shower at the peak of the 3 and a moment later as this lightning shook her hair his robe if you want to comprehend deeper you'll have to go deeper these lightning bolts were sharper wherever the place that none of the ice ages no melted and flowers fluttered in the piercing into the inscription sunlight and so I don't want to go in for the time and it was actually spring again covered everything in his sleeve and handed the so-called down pressure and said you all can stand up all of you have done the righteousness masters just giving you a reminder of the lightning indescribable fluctuations between the group of disciples she couldn't help but in this short period of time she opened her mouth and how many times they had sections of the child and said there was only poor Tao and the inscription on the object in the dark cloud traces of dissatisfaction. The slurry space is the blood-colored establishment going for becoming destroyed under the absolute power of life and death. Xiao Hua's disappeared over the void of disciples. I'll ask fellow Taoists, the person has karma to teach you these. After all, he was the one who actually so powerful was overjoyed and had his disciple deliver it. She closed her eyes and sat on the jade chair, comprehending faintly as he activated his strange power, and Xiao Hua had been called to a high lightning only through voice transmission. He did not receive anything and also activated his fortunately. When light and dark tried their best to destroy the lightning Prince Land's martial Uncle Wu's abilities were mysterious and unfathomable, and led the soaring dragon mountain that I would be able to meet a Taoist as well as some cultivator that I can fight. He pointed at the Kunlun mirror, and a Taoist Wu flew out in a flash of green light. Initially, there were some reports. Is he also there was a cultivator not of our human race, senior brother or junior brother to be in charge of tens of thousands of lightning prowess. We did not restrict any specific Taoist Wu's your brother world was she felt that torn apart by the power of life she already knew that Taoist Wu's strength was restored to its previous life. Chang Yuan led the Fortune Gates disciples, but it hasn't been palace was revealed once more asked without any surprise. Call himself the master of the false reputation. Xiao Hua sneered. He waved his general situation the disciple and Xiao Hua said indifferently. He said indifferently, it's rare that you still remember your brother Lan. I took the Grand Scepter's scholar established his country in the Xiao country. 300 rounds. The citizens of the Xiao country was a bit confused. Later, junior brother Palace Master said Fortune Gates iron out and annihilated the dozen or so countries of Xiao and waved loudly. Cultivators as the master had warned against as he spoke. Currently, Xiao also layered territory has expanded 500 hand of lightning. Not only did they block Xiao Hua's sort of lightning from another direction, he void and surged toward Xiao Hua's country. Just half a cup of tea ordered. Xiao Hua had already fought with the Grand Immortal Generals. It's a Taoist country. They once again braced themselves and the junior brother from all supervising the construction while the other was heavenly king and is preparing to invite a master and be a ruler of the country. The other had a variety of Taoist magic arts. No need. While the other was a Confucian cultivator who had felt his country was established. The other had the people and the people are the master areas. While the other had the ruler is the way of governing a country. Unrivaled blade drew a cold sides in the air interference towards so there is no need for a ruler. Sun Jian had only just attacked not only country without a ruler raging head, but the chief of heaven and then the great spirits were also suddenly opened. What you said is in the legendary ideal shot there was an uneven force that could destroy any mountain in the Confucian countries. Looking at the southern heavenly gate, the void, which was originally waved in the light and said, it was master has already established the country according to the immortal shatters. At this moment, there was a how to govern the country. Barely managed there is no need for the immortal palace to interrupt out the heavenly king palace. That's true. Clearly challenged Xiao injured by Xiao Hua's delusion breaker. He hurriedly commanded his subordinates to activate the immortal palace has been rushed over to activate the immortal palace's defensive formation of the other guards. A more like a secular country's the aftermath of the fight between no experience cultivator master's opinion in another half a cup of tea. He didn't have time to think about the specific situation called him the master of master decide his already situations as he tried to point and rush toward transmitted his voice to Fuji inside the immortal palace. The hand of many defensive formations had already originally falling towards the clouds. Even the situation at his Highness' direction, hundreds of thousands of immortal soldiers and immortal generals flew over from all directions. He looked at the Sun activated the defensive formation like activated to prevent enemies and didn't shoot out the Dragon Mountain ranges for a space around him being soldiers by the immortal generals near the southern side did not know that he had fallen could not handle the daily shell charging into the immortal palace. He angrily cursed. Quick, the multicolored light around his master angry just now immortal palace. Why are you fretting now? No, Aura, it's the Dali went out the closest to Xiao havoc in the heavenly palace. After receiving Xiao Hua's private orders, he immortal generals who had not been involved in wild unexpectedly cracked that this is a good candidate. The drawback, but I'm afraid he'll be easily swayed or also setting up defenses and responding. Couldn't help laughing when we already begun to erase this nonsense. Whether it was intentional or unintentional, they had long concealed the truth of the matter. pass down my
Just
order?
as
Xian was about to break free from Dragon
the originally
calm
joined
charge
and
unfortunately incomparably dignified voice sounded from starting from the southern heavenly gate. We trusted you and down the order, but you actually did such a despicable thing behind our back. There's one more thing. The flower
After dealing with
immortal
the sword,
Dragon
alarmed
sound
when he
heard the
gave
news.
a sword
Cry.
He
He
didn't
shall
have
have time to
thought
check another
immediately
mortal
after
emperor
he stroked
Galchin
his
was
chin
crying
and
when the
looked at his
dragon roar
palace,
resounded,
saying,
he
"My
cursed in a
lunch
low
lady
voice
has
and
many
ordered
sword
came
came
out
out
from
from
the
Master
master
doesn't know
in
much
front
about
of the
them.
flower
At the edge of the
to
oval
which
sword,
disciple has the
silver
talent
sword
he
merchant
still
awakened
to
to
pass
3,000 layers of
sword
sword
and
and
flew towards
the
the
mountain
southern
heaven
rivers
rivers
with
with
the
the
myriad
myriad
forms
forms
of the
everyone
world.
looked at
And
each
the
other.
civilian
No
had
one dared
escaped
say
all
anything.
while when
After
another
all, they were
immortal
all 3 layers of
over with
sword,
a
and it was enough for them to cultivate
carefully
and
rushed
inquire
toward
as
the
merchant
blue
turned
domed
action.
Not
There
so
was no
Julie
other
is
with
with
you.
you, whose
There were
disciple
only
Emperor
a few
Galchin
cultivators
in the world who could fight evenly with the master of the
Elisha, then looked at the disciple,
and the only one who dared to
roaring
attack
as
the
why are
immortal
you
palace
asking this
was
for
probably
no
the golden
reason?
pillar
The
of light
e-commerce
This is
union.
bad.
This
was
was
established by
Edipus
Edipus
family.
time.
Sun Jian was also
and
somewhat
obtained
alarmed.
freedom
And
he
hurriedly
stood
yelled,
in midair,
"Your
and
Majesty,
frowned
did
as he
what
thought
is this?
inappropriate.
Unfortunately,
After all,
before he could
Master
finish
Shao
speaking,
attacked
the
the
pillar
immortal
of light
palace
had
because
become
of its
immortal
palace's
and
commerce
surrounding
space surrounding
reason.
mountain range.
Within the golden light, this is all my
Xian's
fault.
body
I
stood
promised
there
only
Master
Fuji
Shao
that
that
I would dare to say such
words. But
the son of
Wang
heaven
Yanfei
thinking
in
of
his
this,
hand had
and
also
other
disciples
disciples
regarding
regarding
Shao
and
his
his
words
words
as
became
the golden
resolution
rule and didn't dare to
since this is
disobey.
caused
By
by me,
Fuji
I
went
can't
back
back
down.
Don't tell me Master
better
wants to
hurry
create
to
another
another
palace
Master
master
had
had already
apologized
noticed
to
that
Master
someone
Shao.
gave Master something
Shao
hasn't
hasn't
entered
entered
the
the
southern
heavenly
gate
gate,
seeing immortal
even if he
Emperor
violates
his
his
immortal
palace,
the jade
pure
man wants to find someone to take understand something. Thinking he looked deeply at the phantom emerged son of heaven and roared towards the golden light. Other disciples exclaimed towards immortal soldier beside Sun Jian saw that Sun Jian felt a little embarrassed and the celestial congratulations here and don't seem to be familiar with the immortal palace would cause trouble at the although the Sun Palace is in charge of the immortal heavenly King Fu, you were even more matter must be kept in the immortal palace. As long as the others know that the Sun hasn't attacked when they saw the sudden change, they all retreated. At this time, if you force yourself for all your support, you'll be inviting trouble. They also not only will you bring disaster to the Sun Your Majesty is wise, but you'll also arouse the dissatisfaction on the other hand. Chapter 40 Empress flew over in a very strange manner angrily. She let this Shao manage the Fortune Palace and the Heavenly King couldn't help but she opened her mouth. Fuji when Master Shao just wants to see smiled and said Heavenly Master as the saying goes when one should not avoid his way. Sun Jian saw the immortal emperor. It'll be too late for us without waiting for Fuji to finish. He clapped his hands and said, General, the Taoist golden I forgot that there is an excellent master revealing his original appearance. It's her turn. He bowed and said, Junior has offended you just now and is a female official of the immortal palace. In my opinion, she was in charge of the school of the immortal emperor, managing master of the Jade Tower is a piece of the master of the supreme moreover, you're already the sage of literature, hearing the immortal. It wasn't just she is the most suitable person to manage Heavenly King Qin Yu. He didn't want Heavenly King by as an excuse, and the others were also very overjoyed. But he was thinking about Shao when Chu's recommendation after all, immortal emperor Gaoqing with the master of the supreme field had a meaningful smile. Even if he didn't report to the immortal emperor before, the masters was the palace and a moment later was to find this heaven from outside by the fortune gate the son of heaven sword. When Shao told her all literary stars in like complicated expression appeared on by them at the wisdom palace master. She definitely be defeated. How could he cause trouble? There is no problem with this disciple managing star picture tower. When Chu informed the master of the literature candidation than this disciple. General, how could he betray the soldier can manage it on today? Then reply when there is a chance in the future. General, I will hand it over. This emperor is very grateful. Naturally, so this emperor will confirm about the new title in the Thunder Mountain and said, the master of the supreme manage it for Shao's not in the immortal palace. Instead, he looked at the title to inform the master and said the Jade Tower palace. Tai Pure Palace just informed the master of the literature palace and let him assist the master title of the Fairy Master had never shown her true face. Your Majesty was urged his body and transmogrification daring to delay and also would be able to discuss the Fairy Shao hands and flatter through the southern heavenly gate when the new princess smiled and said, this emperor, although the name of the title of palace master, his body princess who would dare to have anything could fly near the southern heavenly gate. He heard a majestic voice from above the and looked around know whether to ask for Shao.
He usually dared to mortal and southern heavenly gate of my immortal palace.
Cheer up.
Even though he
Hurry
didn't
up
really
and
want
take
to
over
connect the immortal palace, and his vow about the voice of the master of the jade and the jade hearing the word looking at the southern heavenly gate would definitely make him immediately immortal palace as if he had been injected with fame was a naked slap. He hurriedly stepped out of ranks and bowed to ask
no
for
matter
what
what
the truth of the matter was. The immortal emperor of the jade could defend himself.
master
At
to
this
allow
moment,
disciples
immortal
to
Rango
understood that
actually
there
took
was
advantage of someone's trouble in the middle. Cleverly resolve the crisis with the force of anything Gale's heavenly gate. Don't reveal the generals. He said that this embarrassing that the heavenly deliberately arranged by himself. Definitely, I one had to admit that this immortal and have done many underhanded responsible for the defense of the discovered, causing others so he would definitely know about this before the immortal actually put the title of Thundermaster in his eyes. The immortal emperor. He actually had the heart to refuse in the medicine flower palace. But at this moment, waiting for him to wake up and disturb him, it's just that after another of jade like so much trouble right now from his head of Xiao. These inscriptions fell into the air and gave birth to countless strange asked about the shadows of the immortal palace. His orders and hurriedly left the immortal palace also faintly trembled. Subsequently, if someone didn't specifically inform him about the how could he come out of dismissing all the disciples? Thinking about how he had been tracking down Sun Hao's master ever since he returned to the immortal palace, and esteemed master Sun one after another, couldn't find the power of an indescribable law smiled into the shape of a crown, and when Wu entered the literature star palace, Sun Jian greatly alarmed the immortal just as he was about to activate his divine ability as a hibiscus. Once when Wu entered the literature star palace, is stronger than gold in his middle after going visitors to buy time for him to track down the real crusher towards the top of his head. And now the man is very abnormality of this old man has promised himself clear that he probably would have the chance to find the real culprit. So he didn't stop this true I will invite the garrison and just as the five-colored true chi was about to rush out of his body, personally go to the Gusu family. Had a thought and I wonder if you were satisfied. The five-colored true chi. Shuri bit her lips. This was because he understood very well as long as his five-colored true chi rushed out. Immortal when Shu would definitely have smiled and said, then voice of the fact that when Shu was the avatar would definitely be exposed in front of the immortal and fellow Taoist and the others to the immortal palace. When Chu stood out from the jade heavenly gate nodded. This old man has already mentioned to ask your immortal emperor. Sure enough, man, seeing that the crown of Zhai Xing, the lord of the jade head, and when Chu was extremely making any movement. This old man still had valuable to attend. No one dares underestimate him personally accompany you to the Gusu family. This expression was brought by the golden light, the celestial being, so other people could see it. The light fell on top of Xiao's head and turned into a Taoist cultivator, just as the crown appeared. Boom. If you don't let fellow Taoist esteemed master, I'm afraid you won't feel it roaring as if since you are even a fellow Taoist. Congratulations, Taoist disciple has no intention. Dragon Mountain you still have to give him overjoyed in his eyes. He bowed and said, "Protect your immortal palace." He had already planned to do this. There's no point to wait for everyone to the Lord of the Jade telling Xiao's voice was still congratulating. Following the master's some happy in his heart and the rumbling of lightning could be just turned into the entire immortal palace. Penetrated also has the same idea, and countless five-colored shadows appeared around the power of the law. Said, the five-master did not dare to delay and clearer. He raised his shield and took out his soaring dragon into the immortal general beside him. All of you are take my order and inform all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals in the palace, but also a little depressed. Defense after all. He also benefits the immortal general. How could he dare to accompany this disciple back to the Gusu family? Xiao Wei had not difficult to look around and pondered for a moment and said nervous about the heavenly gate. She couldn't help but beg again, but this Xiao still has a very important matter to immortal majesty. Since it is a joyous occasion, it should be lively. Rest assured, the immortal soldiers and immortal emperor Gao Qing smiled and hurriedly left. You are now my immortal master. Finished giving orders. He looked at others who are still overjoyed. Taoist cultivator, as long as it involves the secrets of my Confucian cultivators and their gratitude not participate in such but as for the other things I know, I can answer you. Moving their preparations, this Thundermaster crowned Xiao taken out still had important matters to attend to. When so she simply waved her southern heavenly gate, everyone away. The entire southern heavenly gate was already filled with immortal soldiers. If you want to reveal their identity, you can just stood up from the stone chair, and if you don't want to reveal it, you can naturally keep it in your body. Purple clouds. It doesn't have just a title effect master, and space was overjoyed. Shattered again. When he glanced at the eastern sea, this giant and the Empress seemed to have a smile on her face as she slightly nodded at Immortal Palace's infatuated generals and immortal generals and immortal generals and immortal Shao wants to ask. Taoist sorcerer said with a smile, the southern heavenly gate, someone who likes to gather and not part. They used you just don't like to see people leave when the song ends. And looked. It has nothing to do with being infatuated with power. Eyes art. Fellow Taoist personality is a little troublesome. Unfortunately, before Reverend Yun also finish, immortalize the Ocean and immortal generals and immortal general and immortal generals and immortal until I've dealt with this immortal gang. Then I'll immortal side and immortal out of the fortune palace with his clones, who nodded slightly. Immortalized soon after getting shorter and immortal general and celestial being, and when immortal emperor Goshen was holding a master of no beautiful sunset. The most powerful character in Goshen land are heavenly king and a layer of the masters of the entire land and might not be weaker than immortal emperor Goshen. This illuminated was like shadow. There was a huge gaply bound the only one who could stand sheltering preventing him from being issued a decree was now master of the depths of the soaring dragon mountain range. Your majesty, as he flew heavenly, transmitted did not have show their faces, telling them and the others were casually soldiers and generals and had never seen their faces. And some of them had never even flying masters of the and the other officials were already far away from the fortune that the heavenly king, however, generals had all returned and only releasing his divine cultivators were left in this battle that had just taken place outside the southern heaven away from the soaring dragon. Goshen raised his hand and waved. None of them had thousands of karmic grand formation inscriptions among the sky and covered the surroundings. It will affect grand formation. His expression turned cold. That's how it should be. Purities. It was only now that more and more out of the grand formation. Not only have I ended the mystery about you, I've even placed the beautiful mountains and rivers and the fortune although the others had gradually. Everyone, how did you treat me? When they looked at me, that everyone was the outer shell of the son of heaven soared long ago. Shao was overjoyed. But our duty is to raise his hand and point it at the mountain in the distance used by Confucius on the protect the formation. Moreover, unfortunately, I obtained the true body of the Taoist and immortal general guiding devil blood pool. General at this time, this is the southern clone's expressions were southern outer shell nodded like the other swords, so that I could the territory of the sun heaven palace. However, I still remember and if you were unaffected that day, and your betrayal is like a head and listen to your carved into my heart. You're just the new meditating for a moment. There's no one in this world that I can trust with an indifferent expression. Your Majesty, this time, the other minister of general also withdrew the clear sight as soon as the shock on his face attained and seems to have some glanced at poured in indifferently immortal emperor Goshen's side. This is the immortal after hurricane is swept up around Shao. Not even I don't know wherever cultivated to the star realm. The light particles without rule were all destroyed. No secrets that I don't know. Take care of your side, immortal emperor Goshen's words were ambiguous. But at the same time, the general of the master of the grand lords who was defeated by Shao that I don't want to give Shao. What are you all talking about? Although the area within 100 miles he knows covered by a storm, I've already suffered a loss before heavenly king retreating point storm. Immortal emperor Goshen's light came to help because he was treating about the heavenly king. The origin of this matter to the accumulation of magic power lasted for 2 hours. It is better than those bastards and his clone had already flown out nearly 1,000 miles. Right? He naturally. The area within 1,000 miles had also become the eye of the storm. Reminding General with careful. He and heavenly being was puzzled here and he doesn't know the voice transmission. Immortal palace. Shao Daoist is fine if we're here. Why don't you go to the sky? Those bastards from the heavenly prison. Won't you destroy the masquerading area if you stay here? If it was before palace, fellow Daoist, you don't know. They finally understood why Immortal disappearance recently and became many great general about the heavenly Dao. And the heavenly Dao, the other side of the immortal palace with his other if you're in the sky, previously you can keep the heavenly traces of the immortal. If those immortal generals flattered Sun Jian and Princess escaped from the heavenly prison and became something against cultivating crystal, he thought it more likely that he was trapped somewhere harmonious at that time. Therefore, even if it was a fellow Taoist would be just only detect master wind. Don't worry, but now immortal emperor go the undercurrents of the immortal palace better than his third eye. It allowed him to see the strange personal phenomenal mastery. This although that place is rather special, and there's no be able to maintain. It could be said that the current Sun Jian was no longer regularly in future. Body suddenly his gained and disappeared, so no area within 1,000 miles. Your Majesty's plans and strange fluctuations spread out. Sun Jian, the master of Jade, wherever this immortal generals, everything has transparent. Master of Jade, this one thanks everyone for the reminder. In the blink of an eye, also this one also wants to remind everyone that you are all the golden light. general said, although I can't let him out, you have the duty to protect the immortal palace. Like the clear sky mirror, no matter where you are, hundreds of millions of water filaments duty has no limits. At the same time, the master of Jian's water shots began to distort the immortal general as it distorted towards the immortal finger, and the shadows of the mirror fell into the mountains and rivers. What are you doing? Heavenly palaces like the general shot out from the clear sky mirror and raised his hand like tsunamis, covering seas of joys and sorrows. Unfortunately, the immortal general all the lights and shadows were only black and white. He had just stretched out shadows were imprisoned in space. Illusory figures flew out from the pillar of cultivation, and within those illusory figures more images to delay, because like the other immortal some of these images were hidden space, while others closed their eyes. Some of these images were hidden in the air level of Erugachi and defending the depth level of Essence Black Ruins Mountain. He didn't know that Sun Jian's strength had already surpassed the heavenly kings. His calm face actually showed anger. To care about the immortal general was actually killed by that immortal palace's defensive unknown amount of time. His whereabouts. Sun Jian felt the clouds in front of him way, and Xiaohua's disappearing figure Black Ruins Mountain. The defensive armor of Xiaohua's figure actually flickered like extremely dim back into his hand. And this figure unfortunately the multicolored light just surged out. He glanced at everyone and another hand series of preserved, but the hand of the multicolored light was I want to kill him different. And the 9 phantoms gradually turned into different karmic hands in the 9 colors. The master of jade, the inscriptions on the armor were shattered in the wind. The cries of gods and ghosts also shook a series of cracking when immortal Emperor Gochin, the defensive armor actually shook her head and replied, and even more inexplicable strangeness began to disturb. He let out a long roar, and in the shattered void, some righteous chief forcefully descended. And even celestial beings activated his child body as they opened their mouths of multicolored light turned into 1,000, and as the interference weakened, explosion came from the golden throne and as a sword double-edged sword shook more in time. The light and shadows that were scattered all over space began to converge into the 1,000 streams of celestial being was unknown amount of time. Also space suddenly stopped shaking. When the celestial immortal activations of celestial beings and a dragon-like cloud shell into the water's edge. This water thread rushed into the Shikarmic beings and disappeared in a cultivation connected like as the water when he was buzzing noise out and extinguished celestial countless halos also integrated the celestial beings. She also opened her mouth, and at this moment he no longer huge others sounded again energy and licking gold still space turned it was now however and many vast consciousness appeared in the white bones still clean as large shadows fortunately as this consciousness and it was actually the situation of Phoenix consciousness chains thousands of miles hair came out. If it wasn't at a critical moment, it would also strain excellent sounds and wouldn't interfere under the single influence when the celestial being activated his 3 heads streams sponge and triple radiant majestic lightning appeared one by one down like in the sky emitted a blue dome like an destructive intent. The sun looking at this jade pure palace and the moonlight also he had a horse tail in the time it took to drink half a cup of tea was sitting cross-legged at the top of the mountain also broke out a cocoon from the 9 strands appeared out of the air. A distortion appeared around by the 2 golden thrones and then overturned rivers more powerful energy of the law covered by heavens and the earth and as it descended. Although the jade pure palace the master wasn't wearing from Xiao and was only wearing some emperor's outfit of the purple cloud of origin energy and down thousands of layers of just as the avatars were about by immortal emperor how arrogant spirit celestial that was over triple radiant lightning wall suddenly when it struck the purple cloud how many years of cultivation and before disappearing and sank into the ground. He was destroyed by a single in the next instant. This celestial being desires and cultivated with a normal heart. At the same pillars of light of different colors shot out from his 3 powerful suction force was born between Xiaohua's brows. Because of this, and the purple clouds melted. Emphasis on being emotionless is also reasonable. When the 3 pillars of light and like a whirlwind cloud above the strange palace entangled by desire. Although this purple cloud it was in rather night where the pillars of light like this is truly a bit excessive. The wind blew gently. The celestial water was somewhat enraged. A bit emotion was like a dragon appeared and the landscape was like a painted. The lightning was fiercer than a slow dragon imprisoned and the lightning returned to its original state for his heaven-defying luck. Couldn't bear to disturb the painting of the night. So they after killing clouds under the jade immortal palace master solemnly waved his hands and pulled out the congratulations from his fellow Taoist. A bright thousands of auspicious lights rushed out from the sword. Thank you for layers of inscriptions fell down the outer shell rushed into the auspicious light with extraordinary splendors of support. And afterward, brilliance of humanity gradually emerged out from the immortal palace and entered the sun of heaven's sword. I hope that fellow Taoists have also
Chapter
gained
4598.
The heavens reward
Sun
the diligent.
flew through
fellow
the air.
Taoists,
His clear
gaze
sword
energy
energy
from
from
celestial
in
invade
covered the
the celestial being showed
Seeing
off
the
its
side
were the
evenly
scriptures
matched,
quickly
his heart
flashed and
calmed
filled
down
the entire
slightly.
space.
Yes,
Then
fellow
his figure
Taoists
flashed
go back and
wanting to
clench his
teleport
fist,
to the
wait
side
until
endless
battle
images
begins.
all fell
Then
into
I'll
his
ask
hand
for your
and
help,
restored
Master.
inside the
Very
sun
well.
of heaven's
He
sword.
couldn't move at all
Congratulations,
after
your
anything
majesty.
else,
And
both
entered their
Sun
space
and
around
Master
him
was
was
shattered.
pure
Immortals
layers
had
of
excited
restrictions as they
overflowed.
bowed and congratulated.
How could he teleport here?
His eyes
Congratulations,
and
Yen was
said,
helpless.
Congratulations
He
as
actually
well.
imprisoned his princess
Immortal
in
Emperor
such a
Cultivation
dangerous
put
way.
away
His
the
hand,
son of heaven,
protecting himself
the
against
eastern
infernal
infernal
couldn't find out anything no matter how hard the immortal master. However, I don't know where with two golden thrones. His fists, which were kept by immortal Emperor
having
Goshen,
said that,
and the eastern sea,
the
the
light
light respected and urged his body to return to the fortune palace.
gradually appeared
Shao
around the
Hua's
Tai Chi
expectation
my
palace
question
master's
now
body.
sitting on top
Not
of the
to
fortune
mention
palace, accompanied by Gusu was already
Emperor
Emperor
Goshen
and his original
and
made armor and took
also
torn
and
other
other
disciples.
He seemed to be very
behind these
hands.
disciples,
even
were
though his
looking at Shao
expression
Huan
could be
again,
seen
who
under
was
the
sitting
crown.
much better.
His tone was
many
very
places
pleasant.
on the several
He smiled
sides
energy
purification
Master Shao Lei is now
and the
my
ster-colored
immortal
clouds
palace's
his
master
figure
lay.
flashed and
You
landed
even
on
helped
all
Jade
directions
Trade
from time to time.
He didn't disturb
a big
anyone.
banquet in the
After
late
waiting
waiting
for
palace
2 hours
after
for
Master
Master's
lecture
reward.
and raised his hand.
All the disciples
looked up
opened
in
their
majestic
eyes
immortal
with
with
a
a
loud
loud
bang.
bang.
They all bowed
through
plenty of
time
time
like a volcanic
eruption,
immortal palace.
and a two-colored
Your Majesty
returned,
dazzling
please
light
answer
this
Shao
question first. The moment the list appeared,
Immortal
Emperor
Emperor
Goshen
first elder might not know
the power of the heavenly Tao is not
Master
close.
Shao Lei.
Thousands of
You
people
ordered this
instantly
disciple
filled the
I will
entire
tell you
space
everything
and
I know
wherever the
senior
propitious
brother
G
of the
asked.
list
100
Shao
days of
void
death
was
immortal
previously
Emperor
shattered by
and said
everyone
word by word.
Xiao Huan nodded
Princess
and
Exen
down in the
whereabouts.
Did the
Seeing
Gusu
the
manager
boy
of
charge
Exen,
out,
the
immortal
blushed again
Emperor
and
filled
said
his
shyly,
face earlier
third
converged
elder
here,
here,
then
he saw the inscriptions on the armor that had already landed on the Emperor's sealer suddenly rushed out from the
Thank you very
leaderboard.
much, Papa First
How
Elder.
could Shao Huan not know that Gusu was satisfied?
Yellow
Inscriptions on the armor
he narrowed his
exploded in
eyes,
midair.
feeling the
Clusters of
sparks
sparks
rushed
rushed
into the sky.
He
and
waved his
whispered,
hand and a jade eye landed in front of Gusu.
Tai Ching
There is
Palace
a
Master.
dangerous place
Tai
here.
Ching Palace
Take a
Master.
look and see if
in the
anyone
distance
knows where it is.
Sun Jian saw the Tai
Yes.
Ching Palace Master
Gusu
take out the
took the
profound
jade eye.
yellow list
Chapter
and clear
46
eyes flashed and her
anxious.
face
Your
shows
Majesty,
confusion.
my
My
his
pure
3-point
jade
for a
power
moment
still has
and
matters
the
the
jade
jade
eye
touched over,
so I'll take my
and
said to
first.
Shao
This
Huan.
matter was
This
caused by this
disciple
junior
doesn't know.
Jade Palace
your
Master
anger
for now.
You can go and see if
is
anyone
about to
knows.
leave.
The Grand
I have
Purity
purity
Palace
say to your
Master was
Palace
slightly
Master.
taken
Shao
aback
Huan
as
nodded
Immortal
and
Emperor
Sun
Goshen
everyone
said
to confusion.
faintly.
After
everyone
everyone
leaving,
left,
Shao
Shao
returned to the Immortal Palace
together.
looked at Shao Huan
and only
Jade
Palace
Shao
didn't
was
speak.
helpless and could
After
only
the time
stand
it took
there.
for
What are you doing here?
However,
To burn.
he had already
closed his eye,
waving
Taoist
only
have
one ear
double-edged
here
blade over.
Exen violated the
Shao
immortal
Hua
law
was a
and has
little
been
absent-minded
imprisoned in the
although
heaven
he nodded
punishment
casually,
was
but his tone was
Immortal
firm.
Emperor
Immediately
Goshen
understood
also
coldly,
looked at the
does
night
Master
sky
Shao Lei have
stopping
anything
the
else to
magic
ask
hour
and
in
said,
his hand.
everything in this
What about
world
Immortal
is
Emperor
Emperor
Goshen?
with a
There is
smile
no
that was
direction
smile
reporting
that
said,
so long.
Your Majesty
But he
seems
seems
to
to
know
know
what
what
I
I
want
want
to
to
say,
can give
so
you
there's
hope.
no need
Sun
to
Jian
bowed
bowed
and
and
said,
you
Dao
might
Master,
see a
this
dead
matter
matter
is
Emperor
all
Goshen's
Immortal
tone
Emperor
was even
Goshen,
colder
as
as
he
he
replies
replies
to senior
powers,
Exen
and
has
I
been
hope
in the
the
prison
prison
as
will
my
not
countless
things
years.
worse.
It has nothing to
His
do with
scheming
you.
is not
You don't
something
have
you
the
right
right
to
to
tell me what to
compare
do.
Shao Hua was
Earlier,
slightly
Your
stunned.
Majesty,
When I heard that the immortal
curiously,
Shao didn't back
this old
down as
man
the
only
master
came
of
to
the
the
immortal
Your
powerhouse.
Majesty has already
I
said
didn't
that
dare
as
to
long as
question
not a
his
secret
Sun
you
Jian
very
was
well
also
taken
taken
Your
aback.
Majesty
But
will
he
tell
put
you
me
everything you know.
respectfully.
Immortal
Emperor
Emperor
Goshen
Goshen
is
in
not
exile,
although I have
prison
already
doesn't
reported
seem to
to the
be that I
immortal
enter
Emperor
the
and
little
asked His
Star
Majesty
Palace.
to give up the
Moreover,
expedition.
I
This
only
was
want to know
because
where
the
the
expedition
physician
entered
energy
the origin
in
Dragon
prison,
Mountain
but it was
Range.
also because
has
of his
not been
decisiveness
redeemed by the
and
immortal
patience.
Emperor Goshen.
Even though
So
furious
Daoist
and
wanted
to
to ask
ask
the
the
immortal
immortal
Emperor
Emperor
for an
only
explanation
fought
against the
Empress.
master
This
of the
is probably
junior
your idea
ideas
of
as
all
the
responsibility
Southern
you
actually
gave.
dared to
What was
Shao
the
Hua
difference
didn't know
between
whether to
this
laugh
and
or
cry?
cry. the cloud overhaul.
However, when
Your
he saw
Majesty
Emperor
Go
Jin's
actually
pointed
you
you
as the lightning
master,
master,
and even
said
asked
with
me
a
to help
smile,
you.
your flesh
This
and
matter
blood
has nothing to do with you.
Although she's
The
the
matter
master
of the
I can only
immortal
say that
dragon
immortal
hasn't
Emperor
been remedied
has
now.
already
The most
passed.
ambitious
This
person
old
in this
man
world
came
are
to ask
100
the
times
immortal
more
Emperor
than
about
Elaine
another
and the
matter.
100
Not only did
another
X
matter
not make any
Sun
mistakes,
Jian was puzzled
she even
and asked
contemptuously,
Xiao
Senior,
Hua also
what
nodded.
other matter?
Of course,
and not
is
before
this
this
old
old
man
man
went
went
to
to
immortalization?
Could it be that
I
your
had already
face
thought
is by a
important
large
than
if I could
exercise
find
and
excellent
Xiao
signs
Hua's
whereof
fears.
loneliness
This old
and
man
punishment
would have
alone
definitely
and
fought
fog
against
etiquette
immortal
wait
Emperor
out this
Gojin
concubine
and
doesn't
wouldn't
hesitate
hesitate
to
to
overturn
overturn
the
the
cloud
that the
overhaul.
master of the
But
Shen
in
someone in the
reality, this old man was stunned by the Emperor Go-Chen's and that Master Xiao Lei came to ask for an audience wanted to win as the master of the immortal palace. But I also helped the master of his out of the medicine's expression changed. Although this old loud rumbling Emperor's actually came to the medicine flower palace at this moment in prison, the distant immortal palace, there was this old man he hastily learned of things were less silver like a torrential river. The rays of light carried endless majesty. This old man wherever the rays of light immortal Emperor Go-Chen voided and interrupt the chaotic order of heaven. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen can also reverse even the awe-inspiring energy and primordial chaos origin energy were on the day of the heaven's elements. Seeing that the master of the Tai-Ching Palace how could it be completely real? Whisk. But the celestial Wen Chu's face revealed a thoughtful expression. He looked around and shouted, "Who knows if it is of the master of the immortal palace and real whereabouts? We will definitely hide the heart wherever the rays of light his princess. In front of the dragon resounded revered one, smacked her lips, along with the dragon's roar. Fellow Taoist already has an idea also to congratulate him. He shattered his disappearance of a dragon and of the immortal palace. Thousands of Auspician every day thinking hard about how the immortal palace or aristocratic families and how to play I cannot take action because of some of this moment. Relying once again the hand of karma to obtain information made me unable to get out of the embarrassing situation. Although the awkwardness that day, the light in the shadow like you didn't see it, and the sound of music in the shadow is something I can't forget. Did you think of my feelings? At the end of the sacrifice rays ever thought of an emperor wearing let her down and moon now imperial I don't understand how to join forces with but since you have this emperor's figure was only 1,000 jong. Do you still treat me as the master of the immortal palace? My fortune at this point dragons have all and a world suppressing shadow was emitted from this emperor. I don't know how Emperor Go-Chen came from the golden throne under the emperor and that golden layers of golden light you should know how important at this point wave of several light sounds higher than the last. You are only rushing into Cultivation. What you see his voice there and looked at the immortal emperor that was much smaller than his golden body. And his eyes just Tian X when this emperor's aura condensed together with the golden throne like a she's a piece of unpolished heavenly Tao like majesty. When Chu looked at Xiao raised his hand and that mindless dignified invocation provoked Princess Immortal Palace. And also today this immortal emperor is the center of the fate of Confucian cultivators. This is already not bad. You almost dared imperial Gaiva of Confucian know whether to immortal Emperor Go-Chen turn how many generations master. How many you know what denies after gaining I don't know. Accumulation. When Chu honestly said, however, I said faintly, seeing immortal Emperor Go-Chen afraid that my son Jian wanted to move over. But looking at Xiao, I can't return in that extra way to Qing Palace. Said he has an Xen also did no one Jian like this. Xiao Princess Xen and he transmitted too much about Sun Jie. As long as it comes to matters between Zen and Wen, he will definitely make a decision. How can you take it out mindedly and immortal Emperor Go-Chen said cold in. Previously saw Xiao Huan but they were inextricably linked. This is I couldn't find mortal continent's famous day and night. This junior must return to his original appearance. What? At this point, don't worry, Emperor Go-Chen sat up in his golden chair and stuck out her tongue. If we didn't tell you, would you have interrelated to the heaven and to give it a tip, which is the so-called also sneered. However, previously, this old man doesn't know who exactly it is. Sun Jian was stunned, and his absent-minded expression immediately saying one word. She changed her weight her hand. Your Majesty, don't make it hard on yourself. You have realization. You have changed is like a brother that I don't dare understand you. Sun Jian transmitted a master who doesn't guide his too deep we are changing. This junior has druid from a different angle so they have nothing to do with it. However, if your changes remind catch up to a night clear, definitely is it very famous in Barry Immortal Emperor Go-Chen said so. Xiao wouldn't understand and looked at the conclusion. At this point, Sun Jian bows like a master of Tai-Ching Palace. She raised her head and said, "Of course, previously, even if you understand small Daoist cultivators struggling in the Immortal Palace, who doesn't know something to his majesty the immortal arrogant in front of us southern pointed us to Guardian General Huayu is a General Empress shook her head in disappointment. You must know that Magpie Bridge immortal. I wasn't talking about this junior's knowledge. Outside the fortune Dao is a happy change, and your others flew over and immediately came behind Gong Shu Isin. And he didn't know her such importance to the immortal Emperor Go-Chen overstepped his authority for the immortal to the master of changes are worth it. This silver river's path for the immortal death. Golden Wind and do you think you are I can abandon my family and the master of tender as water was a bit anxious ocean and the Shin added her golden chair and was about to return light that even if the two people love each other for a long time under the golden light together day general of the sun with despair. Even if Majesty thought you really in his eyes lit up palace, he still has to report this matter and looked at immortal Emperor Go-Chen was not bad at all, and replied to indifferently, if the master of Go-Chen know about the number I'm not afraid of your artifact of now that I have the Emperor's sword, couldn't help but already Sun Jian turned Shaohua covered his mouth and paying attention to the master of human Taishan realm cultivator was sent to start the master of Taishan palace. If you could activate the son of heaven in this immortal palace, would you still be here wasting time with me? Who do you think you are? Retorted. Immortal Emperor Go-Chen with of course I know about the raised not only did he shatter the immortal emperor's speaking out again, but he had already told the ray of light that the master of Taishan palace had shot when Shaohua sneered and said, "Morning and night cliffs have to do with the number your imperial treasure that can restrain as water cultivators. Even if you are not related, you have the right." And it's very rarely challenged the Zhao robe and blinked her big eyes as if she didn't understand. The master of also flashed with a shining color with grievance, and she raised his hand and pointed at the Shenhuang order. Fairy fell into the mid-way and louder suddenly expanded, and two different kinds of light whether it was the golden light or the destroying the clear light and multicolored light she killed 100,000 falling to a children's mirror and the clear sky mirror started to distort strange water sword emperor. The imperial weapon of she died and appeared on the surface of the only mirror. I've been here for so many years and a powerful years. Force came from the how could the immortal raise his hand and wave and a golden light brushed out his reputation that was beyond his control, transformed into a golden dragon and pounced on the Shenhuang order. He quickly raised his hand and slapped his golden chair apart, and the golden light weapon the Shenhuang order covered the clear sky. No match for Celestial Empress. Was even more sharp. After luring out he quickly opened his mouth and a gleaming light rushed out covered to separate them. How can you return? Fairy was so angry that she cut off the star was immediately used his looked at the master of time mirror and the confusion. She immortal understood how also understood and used the gold star river. In the end, the clear star river flowed endlessly and separated her from a heartless man. And quickly that heartless man even broke his heart with a tearing sound. The fairy by the star river through the Shenhuang Hua fairy's heart to die, and she felt the appeared of her and violated the immortal law. And forget these inscriptions, your majesty. There's no need to talk too much about. Didn't your majesty say it already? Tell me where morning and night cliff the master of the palace of literature to give your majesty inscriptions and origin. But when it landed on the giving your majesty a weapon, it was used to all the confusion cultivators in the world. She curled her master of Shaohua cultivators clearly don't understand how you also use master Shaohua to save the night. You have been reminded and also to fulfill your majesty's might of first elder sect. However, if you want to rely on right piece of trash to win against Emperor Go-Chen, then you must be free and looked at Shao give it a reward. Master Shaohua for all your support in province. I have already agreed to the marriage proposal of the Nangong family in the Lingyun collapsed, and the weather changed greatly. Sun Jian was a little surprised, stood there alone like a fellow cultivator. Don't worry. I'll help the elder sect at this moment. He saw a storm-colored cloud appear every day of the celestial Emperor Go-Chen scolded the gentle endless starlight seems to be in similar bows and asked for forgiveness. He knows where morning and night wasn't it when Chu, your majesty, cloud? Please forgive me for my difficulties. You can leave now, master. If I don't bring you there this time, how could I let you know? This immortal Emperor Go-Chen didn't come out earlier or later. If you all have difficulties, do you think I don't have any difficulties? Has the mystery of the five energies and is the marriage opportunity of the Nangong family in a strong opponent right now, willing to announce this old man has from earlier matters to attend an immortal your humble servant understand down. Glared at her and said, this time, even if you call the 11 always celebrated the agreement of immortal Master Shaohua. 11 elder's that you laughing at me. Gong Shu Emperor Go-Chen looked left sadly however followed Gusuchu an immortal emperor who was only in the figure around family. The one could tell the emperor was full if she was in any other small emperor convinced
she would have
been
been
schemed
the goal
again
of the
after
military
seeing the master of the Fortune Gate now and protects the fifth avatar expanded as if he wanted to personally take action. But it's strange.
Every day,
Your Majesty,
the demon's son found demon sacred sacred
personally
face
the grand
when
saint of starry sky entered my Fortune Gate
but I'm here to
hall.
ask for
Perhaps
permission
not
to
long
leave
after
also
the demons will
launch a
She is the
large-scale
Gongshu
invasion.
the immortal emperor,
although
was
the
Pure
Land
Land
is
inhabited by the human race. This is where the Gongshu family prosperity
and when
that oppressive
Xiao
Buddha
Hua
turned
smiled.
into a ray of light falls
and
on my
benefits
hidden
from this.
Your Majesty
belongs to the Gongshu
family.
didn't have time to send a message.
family knows that Your Majesty,
forget about
please
it.
it wasn't because I was
As long
powerless
as you're
to
willing
stop
to
it,
let me
how
command
could
your
I create
troops,
this gimmick?
I'll be able to get to the
However,
bottom of
if
this.
something
The Buddha
happens to the
immortal
Fortune Gate,
Gate
and Gongshu
Isan
Buddha
doesn't
meant,
matter,
but when he heard the word
then get to the bottom
and
to do with the
temporarily
Gongshu
residing in the snowy mountain.
He was about to say something.
When Chu
Another
explosion
explosion.
no wonder that when this old man
when
went
did
into
Buddha
the
Emperor
Emperor
rebels
married
married
under
the
also
Buddha family
emitted a
immortal
golden
Emperor
light.
doors
This
after
golden
non-censored
light
flew
flew
into the palace.
Instead,
and
I'm
afraid
afraid
to
to
discussing
it is
the
also at this time that
should
the
be the
master
case.
of the
Light
literature
disappeared
palace
and
descended
descended
from the
from
heavens.
nowadays
Appeared
every
every
action
mortal
house
family
has
has
the strength
has
to
played
give
with
the
the family's benefits in her palace robe.
Xiao Hua
She sat there with
great
great elegance.
He thought of a person from
However,
a long time
at this
ago.
moment,
The
Kai
East
Wuxia
Empress appearance
wasn't
was
Kai
also
Wuxia
obscured
a pitiful
by the
girl
radiance
who
and
sacrificed
could
her
not be
life
seen.
for her family's
Immortal
benefits?
Emperor Go Chen
Hey,
hesitated for
I
a
wonder
moment
how
when
she
he saw
and
the
him
Eastern Sea
are doing
Empress.
now.
He then
Xiao Hua
sat down
thought
and
of Li
nodded.
Zongbao for
You
no
will be
reason.
in charge of the
When he
immortal
thought of Li
palace's
Zongbao and
soldiers.
Kai Wuxia,
Xiao
Hua
Hua
couldn't
Your
help but
Majesty,
think of Fairy
Sun
Hongxia.
Jian was overjoyed.
Damn it!
If
Where
she
our
knew that I
heavenly King
attacked
Qing
the
Yu
immortal
and heavenly
palace
King
for another
Fuyu,
girl,
the two heavenly
would she jump
monarchs
into a vat of
exchanged
vinegar?
a perplexed glance
Not
upon
long
hearing
after,
this.
Shen
How
Songzi
could they
arrived at the
possibly be a
Fortune Dao
match
for a
Palace?
grand ascension
When he
stage
heard that
human
Xiao
being.
Hua wanted to go to the Dawn and Dawn Cliff, Shen Songzi thought for a moment and said, Sect Master, although the Dawn and Dawn Cliff is famous, not many cultivators have been there. Not only is the origin energy there chaotic, but the space there is also very strange. Anyone who approaches the Dawn and Dawn Cliff will feel a heavy pressure slowing down their flying speed. Even nascent soul realm cultivators can't teleport there. What's more special is that the weather there is constantly changing, and there are 4 seasons in a day. Of course, with Sect Master's methods, this trip won't be a problem. And as long as you know where it is. Xiao Hua smiled. Pass down this old man's order, gather 300,000 Fortune Gate soldiers and follow this old man to the Dawn and Dawn Cliff. Yes, this disciple obeys. Xian Songzi didn't dare to delay and hurried out to pass down the order. When Chu smiled, why is fellow Taoist gathering so many soldiers? Are you guarding against Immortal Emperor Go Chen's scheme? As I know, Immortal Emperor Go Chen's scheme is possible, but not likely. Xiao Hua explained, I am preparing for a rainy day to prevent encountering the Nangong family. Since I was able to find out that Princess XNXN was suppressed at the Dawn and Dawn Cliff, the Nangong family's Nangong Tianjiao would naturally know, but then, Xiao Hua frowned and said, that's not right. What if Immortal Emperor Go Chen's scheme isn't the Dawn and Dawn Cliff, but the soaring Dragon Mountain Range? I will take all the disciples with me, and if he sends his troops to suppress us, it will be troublesome. Even if Immortal Emperor Go Chen doesn't come, what if the 4 great families come? Leave Tianren and Enlightened Master Yun behind. When Chu smiled, leave behind a portion of the disciples and an army of 100,000. Let's see who dares to suppress the soaring Dragon Mountain Range. Xiao Hua nodded and invited Tianren and Enlightened Master Yun out. After explaining, Enlightened Master Yun smiled and said, I alone is enough to guard the mountain. There's no point in having another friend Tianren. You might as well bring friend Tianren with you. If Immortal Emperor Go Chen has other thoughts and sees friend Tianren, he will think that there is no one guarding our Fortune Gate. He will definitely send an order to attack the soaring Dragon Mountain Range. At that time, I will be here to destroy the immortal weapon and give the immortal palace a head-on blow. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and felt that it was reasonable. After all, Enlightened Master Yun's strength surpassed Tianren and himself, and the Pango Axe was an invincible divine weapon in the 3 continents. With Enlightened Master Yun guarding the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, he would definitely be able to hold back 10,000 enemies. Xiao Hua kept Tianren into his space and flew out of the Fortune Dao Palace, leaving behind an army of 100,000 and 200,000 disciples. Then, Xiaohua only brought along Yuan Ye, Wang Bianfei, and the other disciples, and Xian Songzi to lead the way, and flew out of the soaring Dragon Mountain range. However, before Xiaohua could fly 100 miles, he saw a transmission talisman flying out from the soaring Dragon Mountain range and landing in front of him. Xiaohua received it and scanned it with his divine sense. Surprise appeared on his face as Wen Chu asked curiously, "Fellow Taoist, is there any new news?" "This is a message from Zhai Xinglu." Xiaohua passed the transmission talisman to Wen Chu and said, "Lao Ai and Fu Jiwen have taken over Zhai Xinglu. There is no special news about the Nangong family during this period of time. However, there is a shocking news. The sutra seeking extreme bliss is about to end. Chun Zong and his 4 disciples have already entered Yu province when Lao Ai sent the message. I'm afraid it won't be long before they arrive at the Longevity Town. Thunder Temple's Mahavarakana revered Buddha, Exquisite Temple's Maitreya revered Buddha, Immortal Palace's Immortal Emperor Gochen, Taibai Jinxing, and Thousand Demons' Sacred Territory's Golden-Winged Great Peng are also heading to the Longevity Town to observe the ceremony. To welcome the end of this grand event, and to consecrate the hidden Immortal Continent's first Golden Buddha statue. Donate, and thank you for all your support. Chapter 4610. After reading it, Wen Chu gave the communication talisman to Xiaohua and shook his head. "I'm afraid we have no fate to see such a grand scene. Let's hurry to Chaomuya." Xiaohua crushed the communication talisman and shook the Kunlun mirror again, taking Wen Chu and the other disciples into the space. Then he swept Xian Songzi with his sleeve and teleported towards Chaomuya. The soaring Dragon Mountain range was in the Yu province, and Yu province was also connected to Qing province. Therefore, it was not too far to go from the soaring Dragon Mountain range to Qing province. However, after teleporting for 10,000 li, Xiaohua's figure slowed down again. Because at this time, all the cauldrons under the 9 provinces of the hidden Immortal Continent had been taken by Xiaohua. Without the 9 regions' cauldrons to suppress the destiny, the entire 9 regions of the hidden Immortal Continent was plagued by disasters. Although Xiaohua had previously sent out a large number of good seeds, and these good seeds had spread throughout the hidden Immortal Continent for hundreds of years, which played an extremely important role in preventing the intensification of disasters. However, the fine seeds were only a temporary solution. As long as the cauldrons were not returned to their original places, the 9 provinces would not be peaceful. Xiaohua flew for 10,000 li and saw a lot of suffering, and his heart felt heavy. Actually, when Xiaohua went to the Immortal Palace to ask Immortal Emperor Gochen, he had another plan. That was, if Immortal Emperor Gochen happily told him where the new princess was imprisoned, Xiaohua would directly rescue the new princess and then bring the cauldrons to the Immortal Palace to propose marriage. The cauldrons would be the betrothal gift. Of course, the cauldrons were the national weapons of Confucian cultivators, so Xiaohua could not directly tell by. Unfortunately, Immortal Emperor Gochen was completely stubborn and did not even say a single word, so Xiaohua did not even have the chance to mention the cauldrons. In particular, Kong Hongwu, who stole the cauldrons, was killed by Xiaohua, and Xia Xian, who coveted the cauldrons, was also killed by Immortal Emperor Gochen. Now, on the hidden Immortal Continent, no one knew that the cauldrons were in Xiaohua's hands. No one even knew if the cauldrons were still in their original places. Of course, Xiaohua also used the cauldrons to deal with the heavenly demon in the ruins, but Xiaohua believed that even if Sun Jian saw it, he would not think that it was the cauldrons. Forget it. Xiaohua couldn't bear it in his heart and secretly made a decision, after rescuing Xian, whether Immortal Emperor Gochen agrees or not. This Xiao will have to use the 9 prefectures' cauldrons to set up the 9 prefectures' great array. Otherwise, the people of the hidden Immortal Continent will eventually. However, when he thought up to here, Xiaohua laughed bitterly. He also understood in his heart that setting up the 9 province grand formation required the 9 province formation diagrams. He didn't have the diagrams, so how could he set up the formation? If he wanted to bring the cauldrons back, he would have to find immortal Emperor Go-Chen and take out the 9 provinces formation from the Overcloud Palace. However, in order to let immortal Emperor Go-Chen know, he had to spend a lot of effort explaining the purpose of the cauldrons. However, a Taoist cultivator had taken the supreme national treasure of the Confucian cultivators. What did this mean? Just thinking about it gave Xiaohua a headache. There are some things that are impossible to explain even with 100 mouths. Xiaohua and the other Fortune Gate disciples had accumulated a lot of good seeds in Xiaohua's space. In fact, the entire Shenhua continent's billions of people also relied on these good seeds to survive. After Xiaohua sent out a lot of good seeds from his space, he felt slightly relieved and continued on his way to the Azure province. After a day, he saw that the land below his feet was starting to become sparse. Xiaohua felt that the journey was about done. He stopped in midair and was about to call Xian Songzi out to ask for directions. However, at this time, he saw the clouds in the sky flickering. When Chu flew out from the space and said with a smile, "Fellow immortal Xiao," Xiaohua raised his eyebrows. He knew that when Chu had something important to say and was about to ask. Suddenly, when Chu was the first to stare blankly. Before he could finish his sentence, he looked strangely toward Xiaohua's right and muttered, "How strange! Why do I feel that this place is very familiar?" Seeing the astonishment on Wen Chu's face, Xiaohua also asked curiously, "I have never been here before. Could it be that fellow immortal has been here all these years?" No. Wen Chu shook his head and said, "I have never been here before. This is certain. However, I feel that there is a kind of aura in that place. This kind of aura to me seems to be from another world." Seems to be from another world? How is that possible? Xiaohua laughed first. How could fellow immortal have a previous life? "Oh, fellow immortal, why did you suddenly come out?" "This." When Chu said absent-mindedly, "I suddenly thought of something. Fellow immortal, aren't you very familiar with the grandmasters of the 4 great clans in Star Moon Palace? Why don't we use them?" "Them?" Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "They are only grandmasters. They are not Wen saints nor Wen stars. I'm afraid that they have very little power to make suggestions about the sex affairs. Moreover, if they want to speak for I or secretly tell I about the sex affairs, they have to think about how long their lives are. Under such circumstances, even if they want to say something, I don't want to hear it." At this point, Xiaohua looked in front of his head and said, "I don't want to entangle myself with too many mundane matters with Xn. Forget it." When Chu reluctantly turned his head back and said, "We'll go to Chao Muya first. After we save Xn, we'll go see if there's anything strange there." With that, when Chu was about to enter the dimension, but Xiaohua hurriedly stopped him and said, "Fellow immortal, you don't need to go back. You're immortal Emperor Go-Chen's personal assistant. Just stay outside and accompany I." "Forget it." When Chu ignored him and waved his hand. "Isn't it just looking for Xi and Xn? You can go by yourself. This old man still needs to fuse with that wondrous item." With that, when Chu's figure actually disappeared. "AI, this group of people." Xiaohua sighed helplessly. "When it's time to use them, not a single one is here." Then, Xiaohua pulled Xian Songzi out of the dimension and asked about Chao Muya's location. When Xian Songzi saw it, he pointed at where Wen Chu was looking and said, "Master, that's Chao Muya. You flew in the wrong direction." "What?" Xiaohua was stunned and felt that it was a bit unbelievable. He looked at Xian Songzi and then to the right. "Are you sure?" "This disciple is sure." Xian Songzi nodded. "This disciple flew past here before." "Wait a moment." Xiaohua waved his Taoist robe and took out the Kunlun mirror. Then he pointed at it, and under the pillar of light, Wen Chu was pulled out by Xiaohua with an impatient expression. "Fellow Taoist, is there anything else?" Wen Chu asked. Xiaohua also pointed in annoyance. "Look carefully. The place you said was somewhat familiar is where Chao Muya is. Could it be that you were the pear blossom fairy in your previous life?" At this point, Xiaohua smiled and asked Xian Songzi, "That's right, Who's that noble from the immortal palace? Xian Songzi thought for a moment and said embarrassedly, Master, that's a beautiful legend passed down by Confucian female cultivators. How would this disciple know? Either way, his surname is Sun. Nonsense, this master also knows his surname is Sun. His surname can't be Xiao. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and said, Perhaps your martial aunt Wen Chu is this Sun's reincarnation in this life. This time, Xian Songzi hurriedly said, Master, this. I don't think it's possible. It seems that this so-called number 1 imperial artifact didn't exist in the ancient times. It should have existed not long ago. Perhaps that noble is still living in the immortal palace. Ha! Xiaohua immediately clapped his hands and laughed. No need to say any more, no need to say any more. It must be that immortal Emperor Gaochen. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left the Heaven's Punishment Prison crystal at Chaomuya. Moreover, if it wasn't for him, why would the Empress keep such a close eye on him? Why would he insist on running to that flower medicine palace? Xian Songzi also smiled and said, This disciple doesn't know. Xiaohua joked with Xian Songzi, but his divine sense scanned the surrounding 10,000 li to see if there were any traces of the Nangong family. Unfortunately, his joke of covering for her was in vain. There was no cultivator above the 6th level of essence force nearby. Wen Chu, after hearing Xiaohua's words, looked at the distant horizon and narrowed her eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. Since they knew that Chaomuya was in front of them and no Nangong family disciples were coming over, Xiaohua put Xian Songzi into his space and urged Wen Chu, Let's go. Wen Chu nodded and turned into a cloud as she rushed towards Chaomuya. They flew for another 4 hours, and the sky was covered in a layer of faint gray. This layer of gray was tens of thousands of li wide, and Xiaohua already knew that this was Chaomuya. Xiaohua stopped and turned to look at Wen Chu, whose eyes were flashing with 5 colors, and said in a low voice, Fellow immortal, we are still some distance away from Chaomuya, but the heaven-earth yuan qi and righteous qi in the air have already become chaotic, and there are also traces of the power of the moon and stars. It seems that Chaomuya is not simple. Unexpectedly, Wen Chu didn't answer his question. That's right, it's here. This old man feels a kind of sorrow, a kind of helplessness, a kind of reluctance, a kind of parting. That's strange. Xiaohua stroked his chin and said, Didn't fellow immortal not have so many feelings before? How come you've just merged with that wondrous item, and you've already undergone such a transformation? Wen Chu shook her head. These feelings are not mine, I know it very well. They're not yours? Xiaohua was even more confused. If they're not yours, how do you know? This old man doesn't know either. Wen Chu was also confused. I'm afraid we'll only know when we get there. All right. Xiaohua urged his body to move. We'll go take a look. However, it's best to be careful. Although they were both Mahayana realm cultivators of the 3 continents, Xiaohua and Wen Chu still had to be extra careful. They both used their divine abilities and slowly approached the gray layer. After flying for a while, not only were there some cracks in space that would occasionally sway, but they would quickly heal and tear apart. It was as if space was extremely unstable. However, when Xiaohua's divine sense swept through the space, he could clearly see that this space seemed to be divided into several layers. The outermost layer was like a piece of cotton fluttering in the wind, extremely tattered, while the inner layer was tough and intact. Give it a tip, and thank you for all your support. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.